Hello everybody, this is Dr. Novak. I was watching a video just the other day, and it was a financial guy. He lets you know about different finances, different things that are going on with the economy and everything. And he makes a prediction about the housing market. And he seems like he's got a pretty good sound mind about him when he talks about it. And a lot of YouTube channels, which you can tell in his voice he was aggravated, angry, aggravated, whatever you want to say, kind of brought him up as, oh, no, the housing market's not going to do that. You need to listen to us. And he was aggravated because he said, all these people are just trying to get clicks for their YouTube channel. That's all they're doing. He's an analyst. That's what he does. And he was right. He said, I hate to say it, but I was right about what was going to happen with the housing market. But all these other channels even used him as an example that he was wrong. And, when I watched that, I really thought to myself, and you could tell he was aggravated. I thought to myself, the same thing happened to me. If you think about it, 5 years ago, just 5 years ago, or some for even less than that, a lot of people never heard of the word anoxic. They didn't even know it existed. They never heard it. Unless you're in the medical field, you're a nurse, you're a doctor, dentist, you probably never heard the word anoxic. I know in the aquarium trade, hearing the word anoxic, nobody really ever heard of it. And not much was ever said about it. But I would say within 5 years, now you have all these YouTube channels coming up, and they're professionals. And just even now, let's say 5 years ago, even now, to them, the nitrogen cycle was ammonia gets broken down to nitrites, nitrites get broken down to nitrates, and the nitrates are consumed by either plants or water changes. And that to them was the nitrogen cycle. That's how they advocated it. I mean, this is just a matter of a few years, just a few years. They were wrong. And all of a sudden now you get these people who are, advocating tautology as facts. And they are going around and telling people within a matter of years, which they've only found out about some of these words, or even how the real nitrogen cycle works. Some of them still do not advocate the way the real nitrogen cycle works, where you have dissimilative denitrification going on. These are words they never even heard of. Dissimilative denitrification. They never heard words like this. Not in the past 5 years. It's almost like someone who, I don't know if they have it anymore, but a long time ago they used to have, like in high school, you could take shop class. And you could take shop class, and just because you make a metal hammer doesn't make you a tool or die maker. Okay, it doesn't make you a skilled craftsman because you went to school and you had a class and you learned how to make a metal hammer or a square. And shop class doesn't make you a tool die maker. Just like driving a car from 0 to 60 in 3.5 seconds doesn't make you a NASCAR driver. There's a lot more entailed to make you an expert at something than all of a sudden you just claim yourself to be an expert. I remember one of the YouTube channels, I talked to a particular individual, and he was talking about clays and stuff like that. And I said, you are talking to the expert. Oh, you're not the expert. Oh, so you're now the self-proclaimed expert. But less than 5 years ago, you never even talked about clays of any sort. All of a sudden, now you're an expert. Now we're getting people talking about, oh, anoxic zones different from anaerobic zones. 5 years ago, 4 years ago, 3 years ago, they never heard of it. I mean, these people, their livelihood is not into microbiology. It's not into limnology. It's not into ichthyology. It's not dealing with anything with active sewage treatment facilities or ponds and lakes. They are not even into any of that. They do other things in their lifetime, like most hobbyists do, and they pick it up as a hobby, but now they're the self-proclaimed expert. And these same asthmatic individuals who can't even control their own body are giving advice on something they know very little about. I remember years ago there was an individual who did some experiments with the anoxic filtration system, and during his experiments he changed things because things weren't working right. And I said, you can't do that. You have a protocol. Whenever you're going to do experiment, you have a protocol you have to carry through with. If you change anything in that protocol, then you have tainted the experiment to come up with different results. And you may come up with a false positive or false negative result because now you have changed something in the middle of your experiments. You cannot do that. And that irritated him when I said that. And you got a lot of these people who have never tried an anoxic filtration system or anything that are advocating what they're saying is 100% correct. But they've never used it. They've never done any experiments. Or you'll get the expert on YouTube who's maybe made one aquarium and says, oh, it failed and therefore it's no good and this is my synopsis of the whole thing. And that's the end of that. In order to give information to people, you just can't make one aquarium and say, oh, it passes or fails. After all, you can make a lot of aquariums and they may pass and some may fail. It depends on what the ratio is. If you make, for example, a deep sand bed filter aquarium and you try it, and let's say you try it 10 times and only 1 out of 4 times is successful, that means you got a 75% chance of failure. That's not very good. I've talked to other hobbyists who have advocated the same exact thing, that when they have made deep sand bed filters, they have failed. And maybe 1 out of 4 that they set up were really successful, where they were very happy with it. So that's only 25% chance of success. Now, on my channel, I've set up aquarium after aquarium. I've showed you different things and had great success with things, except for, I would say, for me, the goldfish aquarium using all that sand and stuff, it's a success as far as the livelihood of the fish are going without problems. But as what I would say 100% success, I would say no. It's not as working as well as I would like it. Not like, for example, the other aquariums that I have set up with plenums that used other substrates that were more open than sand. Okay, that's what I mean. Because I should have mixed the sand and made it more open. The porosity of the sand and the permeability of the sand, it would have been changed. Now, I have a lot of people advocate sand, which I've even told people, I said, well, you know, you use sand and you're supposed to use fine sand and this sand. And I said, let me ask you a question. What do they fill sandbags with? Well, they fill it with sand. And what do they use sandbags for? Well, they stack them up during flood times to hinder water from coming up and destroying property. I said, right. I said, why do they use sand and sandbags and stack them up? So water can't come through them because it hinders the flow of water. Sand does. Now, anyone who's taken agriculture knows that anything like, for example, sand, when it's dry, it will absorb and suck water in. Because a lot of people will say, if you have dry land, for example, will it suck up water more so than, let's say, damp soil? So you have dry soil and damp soil. Well, what they found out is dry soil will literally suck up water faster until it becomes saturated. Then the water will slow down. So soil that's already wet or damp will let water come through, but not at the same rate. And this has been proven by engineers, Army Corps of Engineers and engineers that deal with this, agriculture and everything else. We know that dry sand or soil will hurry up and let water go through very quickly until it becomes saturated. And people don't seem to remember that sandbags are there to hinder flow. That's why we use sandbags. They're there to hinder the flow of fluids. And now we are adding this into an aquarium thinking that it will not hinder flow of fluids. Does this make any sense to anybody? Is anybody comprehending this? I mean, you know, we don't think about this. Well, the sandbag, yeah, we know they use it to hinder flow of fluids. But you know what? It's going to act different in our aquarium. Yeah, it's going to act different. Why would it act any differently? It's designed and compacts and hinders the flow of fluids because it's pore water and permeability capabilities of that particular substrate. Okay, that's what it does. Now, cosmetically, it looks better, but let's face facts. A lot of hobbyists will just tell you the truth. I'm using sand not because it cosmetically looks so neat. It's because it cosmetically fits my wallet, and it's very cheap to buy a bag of sand for $6 or $7 for a 60-pound bag of sand than for a 20 or 25-pound bag of substrate. Going on to what I was saying, now you got these people that are going to tell everybody all about anoxic conditions, which they knew nothing about anoxic conditions. They didn't even realize anoxic conditions are in your mouth right now. The bacteria and everything. You have anoxic conditions in your mouth right now. They didn't even know that. It wasn't until my channel came up and started talking about stuff like that that they start getting educated. And then they said, well, I know more than him because now I become the expert. And I'm going to tell everybody just exactly how it is. You know, these stations, these channels, all they're doing is wanting clicks. That's all they want. They want clicks to make money on YouTube. Just like the financial advisor. He examines everything. He examines the market. He examines everything to come up with his synopsis of what's happening in the market. That's his job. And all these YouTubers out there are just trying to get clicks by saying, oh no, the market's going to do this, and then they put this guy down. Does this really sound familiar? Of course it does. It's a way of people getting clicks. You know, instead of trying to talk about something you know very little about, Why don't you go to the expert and ask the expert so he can tell you exactly what you're saying, if it's wrong or right? And I find a lot of these channels are wrong. They don't know what they're talking about. They are not limnologists. They are not microbiologists. They don't deal in any of that. They go to work every day, whatever they do, whether they garbage collectors, IT personnel, whatever they do for a living, they're just hobbyists. And hobbyists can become very good at breeding fish. I've bred, 256 different species of fish in my lifetime? That's a lot of different kinds of fish. As a hobbyist, since I've been a kid until my adult, of different fish and invertebrates. So, you know, you have to think about when these YouTube channels are coming up, what experiments did they did? Oh, I did an experiment. No, set up a whole bunch of tanks. I have people who write to my channel. They got 30, 40, 50 tanks all set up with an oxyfiltration system, working just fine. But see, they don't want to hear that. They don't want to hear that. They don't want to hear that. What do you mean that you got all these tanks set up and every one of them is doing just fine? They don't want to hear that because it upsets them. They want to hear anybody who's failed. And like I said, not every system out there is going to be for everybody. I've even admitted that. If you can gather about 80% success rate, you're doing pretty good, because I have not seen any system out there, and I've seen some very expensive systems for ponds and for aquariums that weren't successful. And people spent a lot of money on those systems, and they weren't successful. Was it the hobbyist's fault? Was it the system's fault? That's because everybody knows there is a certain amount that will not be successful no matter what you give them, no matter what you do, no matter how hard you try. That's why I really don't put down anybody's system on my channel. I'm not into that like they are. They're doing it to get clicks. I don't put down other people's system. All I'm saying is, if you like their system, use it. That's what I tell people. If you think their system is better, go ahead, use it. I'm not advocating that you have to use an anoxy filtration system or BCP bags or a plenum. Hey, if you feel that somebody's got a better system out there and it fits your criteria, go ahead and use it. Use it. I'm being honest with you. If you feel that it wasn't as successful as you thought because of the tautology that the people were giving off about the system, then you can change. And you could try an alternative. It's like anything else. You have alternatives to use. That's why I don't badmouth anybody's system. You want to run a system, you want to put sponges in it, that's fine. Fine, good. Good. There's a lot of successful people out there doing that. I wanted to bring that up. I see that a lot of people, they're talking, oh, I'm going to explain to you the difference between anoxic and anaerobic. These are words that they didn't even know 4 or 5 years ago. They didn't even know what the word anoxic means. In fact, today, these so-called YouTube channels are still getting these words incorrect of what they mean in the science world. They're still getting it incorrect. And they're still not understanding how these words relate to biological activity. But they're all of a sudden, because they want clicks. And if they can get clicks to get you to watch their station, they're making more money. All I'm saying is, like the financial advisor who is right, and so many of YouTube channels were calling him out and actually called his name and calling him out. He was wrong. He was right and they were wrong. This is a case of, I know what I'm talking about. You want to prove me wrong? Prove me wrong. But the point of it is, when you're doing YouTube channels and you're not an expert at something, and you just found out about something maybe 2 or 3 years ago, and all of a sudden now you become an expert and you're going to start doing YouTube videos because you're such an expert at something, I think I would take what they're saying with a grain of salt, because some of these words and stuff that I have brought up weren't even spoken about on YouTube channels ever, until I, on my YouTube channel, start bringing them up, because I was educating people and showing you and telling you what you go through if you go through microbiology, if you take limnology, you want to become a limnologist, if you want to become an ichthyologist. If you want to take any of these, you are going to have to learn basically biology. And if you take aquatic microbiology, you're going to have to learn all this. This is part of what you have to learn. If you're going to take anything with sewage treatment, you are going to have to take microbiology. You know, here where I live, we have over 100 lakes and ponds that we have to deal with. You know, you've got to know what you're dealing with. You've got to know what's happening to these lakes and ponds to deal with it. These aren't fish tanks. There's more complications with these, what I'm saying. So I would take a lot of these YouTube people with a grain of salt, because they are advocating something that they want you to do, and they want you to only listen to them. And that's why I use that word tautology, because they think it sounds right to them and therefore it must be right. Well, everybody is entitled to their own opinion, okay? But you're not entitled to your own facts. So until next time, this is Dr. Novak. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to subscribe.